So, good evening everyone. I am Dr. Satyabrata, MDDM clinical pharmacologist, and today I am going to discuss on statistical variation. So, coming to introduction, the measures of statistical variation, the measures of central tendency are not adequate to describe a data. So, two data sets can have the same mean but can be entirely different. Thus, we describe a data, one needs to know the extent of variability. This is given by the measures of dispersion. And other things are range, interquartile range, and standard deviation. Then what is variation? Variation or dispersion tells us about the extent or the degree to which values in a distribution differ from the average of the distribution, that is mean. This gives the measure of the reliability of the mean. Then what is the characteristics of an ideal measure of variation oblique dispersion? So data should be rigidly defined. It is easy to understand and calculate. So it should be at least affected by sampling fluctuations, and the variation should not be affected by extreme values. These are the characteristics of an ideal measure of variation of dispersion. Then measures of dispersion, that is absolute measure of dispersion. Here the dispersion is measured in the original unit of the data, and this can be used to compare variability in two or more distributions provided they are given in the same unit. And in case of relative measure of dispersion, it is called as coefficient of dispersion. This is free from unit of measurement. Then methods of measuring dispersion, that is range. Range, this is the most simple measure of dispersion. The difference between the maximum and the minimum values in the data series of a distribution is called as range. The limitations of range is that it is not based upon all the observations. It gets affected by extreme values, and it is largely affected by sampling fluctuations. The advantage of range is that very quickly we can get a brief idea about the variability and easy to calculate. Then if this is an example, calculate the range in the given data set. 7, 10, 11, 16, 18, 19, 19, 22, 23, 28, 30. So range is equal to maximum minus minimum value. The maximum value is here 30 minus minimum value here is 7 is equal to 21. So the range is calculated as 21. Then coming the next is quartile. What is quartile? It is the percentile and quartiles. The percentile and quartiles are the measure of relative standing, and the descriptive measures that locates the relative position of an observation is called measure of relative standard. For example, quartile, percentile. 25th percentile equals to the first quartile, 15th percentile equals to the second quartile, 75th percentile equals the third quartile. So quartile divides the total frequencies into 4 equal parts. The Q1 is equal to n plus 1 by 4 ordered observations. Q2 is equal to 2 into n plus 1 divided 4 ordered observations. Q3 is equal to n3 into n plus 1 divided 4 ordered observations. So the distance between Q1, Q2 and Q3, Q2 may or may not be equal. In case of asymmetrical distribution, it may not be equal. Interquartile range. Interquartile range, it is the difference between third and first quartile, that is Q3 minus Q1. And here interquartile range it is the difference between third and first quartile, that is Q3 minus Q1. So what is the advantages? What are the advantages of interquartile range? Interquartile range is less affected by sampling fluctuations than range, and this is not affected by extreme values and is useful in skewed distributions. So coming to limitations of interquartile range is that this is not based upon all the observations in a data series. Then coming to standard deviation. Standard deviation ST. Standard deviation shows the variation in a data. If the data is close together, the ST standard deviation will be small. If the data is spread out, the ST standard deviation will be large. ST standard deviation is denoted by a Greek letter sigma. High value of ST standard deviation denotes less consistency in the observations and less reliability of the mean. So standard deviation is considered to be very accurate and is the most reliable measure of variability. Then steps to find ST, that is standard deviation. So first of all, find the mean, then subtract the mean from each value to find the deviation, then square each deviation of mean, find the sum of squares, divide the total by numbers of items, lastly take the square root of the number which we found. So formula of HG standard deviation, sigma is equal to summation x minus mean square divided by larger root over. So what are the advantages of HT standard deviation? Standard deviation gives a more accurate idea of how the data is distributed and it is not affected by extreme values. Then what are the disadvantages of HT standard deviation? Standard deviation is not appropriate for skewed data and it can be difficult to calculate sometimes. It can be difficult to calculate standard deviation sometimes. So this is the example I am giving. Find the standard deviation of the math test scores of 5 students with the scores of 92, 88, 80, 68, 52. In this case, mean is equal to 92 plus 88 plus 80 plus 68 plus 52 by 5 divided by 5 is equal to 76. So now we calculate the deviation. The deviation is 92 minus 76 is 16, 88 minus 76 is 12, 80 minus 76 is equal to 4, 68 minus 76 is minus 8, then 52 minus 76 is equal to minus 24. So taking the square root of the deviations, 16 square is equal to 256, 12 square is equal to 144, 4 square is equal to 16, minus 8 square is equal to 64, minus 24 square is equal to 576. Then sum of the squares is equal to 256 plus 144 plus 16 plus 64 plus 576 is equal to 1056. Then dividing it by number of observations, that is equal to 1056 divided by 5 is equal to 211.2. Then ST standard deviation is equal to root over 211.2, that is equal to 14.53. So here the standard deviation is calculated at 14.53. In this way you can calculate standard deviation if you are given the data. So then coming to variance. What is variance? Variance, it is the square root of ST standard deviation. So it follows the similar process which is used to calculate the ST standard deviation. So formula for variance is equal to summation x minus mean square divided by n. So variance gives a rough idea of about the spread of the data, while ST standard deviation being more accurate, giving the exact distance from the mean. So these are the references, and you can go through these references to learn more about this and other statistical books and articles to learn more about these topics. So that's all for today. Please like and subscribe my channel so that you can learn a lots of different new topics, and if you want to learn more and more, then go through different articles and books and guidelines so that you will you can get lots of knowledge about different topics. So that's all for today. uh, Thank you very much. Jai Jagannath.